Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra continues to be a talking point in political circles. How do you measure the success of the Yatra? This is a question we will put to our newsmaker today, Yogendra Yadav, who will be joining us shortly. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. Our focus today continues to be on Mr. Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra, a yatra he describes as a dukan of mohabbat in a bazaar of nafrat. But opinion is divided on how to measure the success of this yatra. Is the barometer of success purely electoral? Is the barometer of success the fact that Mr. Gandhi and the way he was caricatured by the BJP has now, in a sense, reimagined himself? But in his own reimagining, can he reimagine the Congress party? And can he reimagine opposition politics? Or in all this talk of love and hate, is this a hallmark card approach to politics? There are tough questions to be asked even as the yatra becomes an inarguable talking point. Yogendra Yadav is somebody who says he's with the yatra but not with the Congress party. In his previous years, he's in fact been a critic of the Congress party. But he has spoken movingly and also passionately on this platform about why he decided to throw his weight behind the yatra. More than 100 days have passed since this yatra. Let's go across now to Yogendra Yadav and ask him how today he would assess the success or the lack of success of this yatra. Namaskar, Yogendra ji. Always good to see you. You know, when you first decided to start walking with Rahul Gandhi, I had interviewed you then, and you had said that it was too early to measure the success or the failure in tangible terms. You believed in what the yatra was trying to do, hence you were walking with it. 100 दिन हो गए हैं, 100 दिन से ज्यादा हो गए हैं. अगर मैं आज आपसे पूछूं कि इसकी tangible hits and misses क्या हैं, what would you say?
But I must have said then that for me, the real thing about this yatra was not the calculus of electoral votes and seats. People like me who are not with the Congress party, we're not here to in a campaign to promote Congress party's electoral prospects. We can discuss it, but that's not my principal objective. My principal objective was and continues to be the narrative of lies and hatred, bigotry that has taken over this country. दिमाग में झूठ का पर्दा और दिल पे नफरत का पर्दा. This is what we witness in this country. Can this wall of lies and hatred, can it be broken? That is the principal motive for people like me to join the yatra. 100 days after the yatra, we can say with some confidence कि इस दीवार में, नफरत और झूठ की दीवार में एक छेद हो गया है. I would not say that it has collapsed. No, it has not. Too much money, too much power has been invested into building this wall. It hasn't collapsed yet. But a hole has been drilled into this, and some ray of hope, some light has started emerging. Let me spell out this metaphor. 3 months ago, we were in a continuous slide. Things were getting from bad to worse. And for anyone who opposed Mr. Modi and this regime, it seemed we were fighting against an impossible odds. In interviews like this one, I was asked, 24 is a done deal, Yogenji. Now let's look ahead. I was told that everyone said, आएगा तो मोदी ही. और पंगा मत लेना भाई इनसे. CBI, CVC, IT, क्या कुछ हो सकता है, be quiet. Has all that stopped? No, it has not stopped. Has that slide at least stopped? Yes. The continuous slide that we witnessed has definitely stopped. And the tide is beginning to turn. It's just beginning to turn. I would not overrate. I would not say things have moved dramatically. But yes, the tide is beginning to turn. And how do we see the tide beginning to turn? We see that in the response the yatra has had in terms of number of people who come. We see that in terms of the kind of people who are now willing to associate with this yatra, who few months ago would have had nothing to do with Congress party.
For instance, do you mean a Raghuram Rajan, a Kamal Hassan?
Prashant Bhushan, Admiral Ramdas. I mean, these are do remember Admiral Ramdas was leading the Lokpal was one of the leading voices of the Lokpal movement. So we've had a number of people. I mean, these are some people who get noticed by the media, but you've had a number of people who have come, and you can see that in the response from the BJP. If this yatra needed a certificate of its popularity, I think the health minister of this country has given a health certificate to this yatra by saying COVID hai, aap yatra ko rok dijiye. I mean, the whole thing is so ridiculous. This is when Mr. Modi 2 days ago had addressed a rally in Tripura, so clearly Corona had not reached then. This is when Rajasthan BJP, even after this letter, refused to stop its own Janakrosh Yatra. So one thing is clear, the BJP is rattled. And that means, वो कहते हैं ना हिंदी में कि तीर निशाने पे लगा है. That is for sure. So the slide has stopped, the recovery has begun, but it's a long, long battle ahead.
Let me share with you a quote from somebody I think both of us follow closely, Pratap Bhanu Mehta. Pratap Bhanu Mehta, writing in the Indian Express, described the yatra as a journey in search of a destination. And he spoke about a couple of things. One was that he said it was not yet clear who Rahul Gandhi himself wishes to be. Two, he said while there was an ideological alternative being offered by this yatra, it was not yet clear whether this Congress could reimagine a language for secularism, which is a slogan that has been corroded and on which the Congress too has a somewhat tarnished, controversial record. So let me put Pratap's words to you. Do you believe A, this is still a journey in search of a destination? And do you believe B, that it is not clear whether Rahul Gandhi wants to be philosopher king, ideological mentor, or a 24/7 politician? And if the answers to these questions are still ambiguous, does that take away from the effectiveness of the yatra?
I'll come back to the Rahul Gandhi bit a little later. We can, I'm sure you want to talk about it, and let's have a frank discussion on that. But let me first say that when people like Professor Pratap Mehta and Suhas Palshikar, he wrote 2 days ago, comment on this yatra and point out the limitations of this yatra, I think it's a very significant certificate of the seriousness of this yatra. When Suhas Palshikar and Pratap Mehta take note of something, find it worthy of commenting, and say, don't get too excited, I think we should put our head down and listen to people like this very carefully. And I think it's a very timely warning. Let's not get excited too soon. Professor Palshikar says the yatra needs to expand its geographic impact, needs to go beyond the places where it's traveling, needs to increase its intellectual communicative reach, and needs to reimagine itself, needs to expand its political message. I think these are very valid warnings, very valid signs. Pratap's question about has it led to Congress party being able to reimagine itself? Once again, I think it's a very fair question. I would not, I cannot say read Pratap Mehta and Suhas Palshikar, except when they criticize me. It can't be. When they say something serious, one has to listen to those people very carefully. One could say, if and when I meet them, I would say to them, looking at it from outside, you have a slightly wider range of possibilities that can be done. When you get inside, you realize that the range of possibilities is a little narrower than you would imagine from outside. To my mind, the fact that this yatra is happening. Remember, when I started this yatra, some of my serious friends said, Yogen, तुम तो भोले आदमी हो, तुम तो सड़क पे चलते रह जाओगे और ये लोग ना हेलीकॉप्टर लेके चौथे दिन चले जाएंगे. The fact that this yatra is happening, the fact that for all the difficulties that Congress party has been in, and I needn't elaborate all that, everyone knows about it. Despite all that, the party has been able to pool in all energies and to make it a success on the road, not just on television, not just in statements, making it successful on the road. These are not small things. And that the narrative, which was so, the entire country was in the stranglehold of a certain kind of narrative. That stranglehold has been loosened. It hasn't disappeared. It has been loosened. For the last 3 months, BJP is not dominating the narrative of this country. They are responding. Just look at how rattled BJP spokespersons are. Every day they try to come up with something which turns out to be so utterly ridiculous. They tried the container thing, the picture proved to be fake. They tried t-shirt, everyone remembered 10 lakh wala suit more than the t-shirt. They tried उज्जैन की आरती उल्टी सीक्वेंस में कर रहे हैं, पता लगा मोदी जी ने भी एग्जैक्टली ऐसे ही की थी और शिवराज चौहान ने भी की थी. And now it's the Christmas. So when you take a Dashera break in Mysore, it's all right. When you take a 3-day break for Deepavali, it's all right. But in this country, it's a crime to take a break for Christmas. While the Prime Minister exhorts the whole world to take Christmas seriously. That's this morning. So, just the fact that they are so rattled, it's after a long, long time that BJP is reacting, that opposition and specifically the Congress is in a proactive mode. To my mind, getting these basics is a very significant step. Yes, a lot needs to be done more, and the points made by both the analysts are fair points. I think we need to look at these. The yatra needs to be fine-tuned. Clearly say, Delhi is not the destination, both geographically and also symbolically. And I would go ahead and say that even Srinagar is not the destination of this yatra. These are just steps in a longer journey. If this yatra were to stop in Srinagar and become a successful event, that would be a pity. And that's what Professor Parshikar alerts us about. If it remains an event, that would have limited impact. Yes, it would have impact, but the impact would be short term. It will disappear. It will disappear in thin air. But if this yatra becomes a movement, something that is followed up after Srinagar, and if a number of activities begin with Srinagar, then this yatra would be successful. So, and I keep saying, ye yatra ki shuruaat Srinagar se hogi. Yatra khatam nahi hogi Srinagar mein. So that's not the destination. The destination ought to be the heart and mind of an ordinary Indian. I'm very conscious of the fact that if you travel maybe in Bihar and rural areas of Jharkhand, people have not even heard about this yatra. If you travel to even those places where the yatra went, they may not be able to say what the yatra really was about. These are limitations. And of course, these are limitations to be worked upon. But in the 100 days' time, coming at a moment when there was really no hope, I think the yatra has achieved much, much more than I thought.
Let me ask you this. One of the comments that you made was that पप्पू का जो tag, एक tag था जो राहुल गांधी के लिए यूज किया जाता था, पप्पू. It was a caricature by the BJP and its supporters. And you said whatever else the yatra has or hasn't or will or won't do, that tag, that caricature has been erased. Let me personalize the question a little more. Do you think you have called yourself somebody who's not with the Congress but who's with the yatra? You have called the yatra a Congress plus yatra. Do you see yourself as somebody who has moved from being a critic of the Congress, a critic of Rahul Gandhi, to a supporter or a qualified supporter? And I ask you this because often the measure of politics or even a political social movement is how many people it can move. The measure is not how many people it's communicating to who already supported the Congress party. The measure has to be कि जो लोग राहुल गांधी को या कांग्रेस पार्टी को सीरियसली नहीं लेते थे या एग्जैस्परेटेड थे या फ्रस्ट्रेटेड थे या नाराज थे, आज वो लोग कहाँ हैं? तो आपसे शुरू करते हैं. आप भी एक ऐसे क्रिटिक थे. आज आप कहाँ हैं?
Allow me to come to that in about a half a minute later. Allow me to begin with Pappu ka image. What does that Pappu signify? The Pappu image had 3 components. One, the man, he simply cannot take the street reality of India. इस देश के धूल धक्कड़ में 4 दिन चल नहीं सकते. बाबा लोग हैं, इन्हें तो कुछ पता ही नहीं. Number one. Number two, that he's so arrogant that wouldn't speak to his own party leaders, let alone ordinary people of this country. Three, unaware of the ground realities of this country. These are the three elements of the Pappu image, which BJP had so successfully spread to the world. Today, that image stands shattered. A, अब धूल धक्कड़ में 3-4 दिन नहीं, वो जो मेरे दोस्त कहते थे हेलीकॉप्टर लेके चले जाएंगे चौथे दिन. Now it's more than 100 days. And to be fair, I mean, I told him then that, look, I've spoken to him and Rahul told me personally, और कोई भी ना चले, मैं अकेला चलूंगा. And he has proven it in all fairness. Number two, about not connecting to ordinary people. Barkha, you just look at the images that come every single day. And as a journalist, you would know, and I can testify, none of these images are engineered. This child that you see now on the street, on Rahul Gandhi's back, no one had organized it 1 hour ago, and no team had gone, picked up this child and arranged everything. So it's not an ambulance wala show. This child must, किसी ने वहीं से सड़क पे वेव किया होगा, राहुल गांधी must have said, अच्छा इनको ले आइए, और वो हो गया. So it's happening spontaneously, and all the journalists in Delhi can check whether it's happening spontaneously or not. And number three, his connecting to realities of this country. Now it's 108 days. I have personally been involved in arranging civil society interaction with Rahul Gandhi, which is to say almost every day we decide, which particular delegation would come and meet him, spend 10 minutes with him, walk with him. These are organized interactions, not the spontaneous interaction of ordinary people. And then obviously I get to speak to them after the interaction. Not one person has come back to say he was not serious, he was not involved. These could be BD workers, these could be Narega workers, these could be transgenders fighting for their rights, these are Adivasis or whatever. Rahul listens to every one of them carefully, responds to them. So this image changes. As someone told me in Ujjain, अरे भैया इससे पहले तो देश राहुल गांधी को नहीं जानता था, राहुल गांधी इस देश को नहीं जानते थे, पर अब राहुल गांधी भी देश को जान गए हैं और देश भी राहुल गांधी को जान गया है. Now, this is a metaphor. It may not be quite true, but this metaphor in a sense captures how the Pappu image has been shattered. Now let me talk about myself. I've known Rahul for 15 years now. And I always remarked on two things. One was his sincerity in both senses. A, he's a straight person. ये नहीं कि बोलना कुछ, meaning कुछ, कहना कुछ, करना बिल्कुल उल्टा. That's not what he's done. He's a straightforward person. But sincere in also a second sense, that is to say, about constitutional values. He's actually very seriously committed. And the second thing I've always said about him is his seriousness and intelligence. I've said that about the real issues of this country, he is quite serious about those issues. And Barkha, since you mentioned my criticism of the Congress party, in that most damning piece that I wrote against the Congress party, in that he is more sincere than any politician I have met. And then he's more intelligent than people think he is. So a critic of Rahul, no. But someone exasperated with what was happening, yes, of course. And I said, what do we do with this sincerity and intelligence if it doesn't lead to defeat of the BJP, if it doesn't lead to combating the BJP? What have I discovered in these 108 days, apart from reaffirming the fact that he's sincere and serious? There are two things that I've discovered, which I actually had not seen before. One is his tenacity. I doubted that. But just sheer tenacity, and I can share with you, Barkha, within the first 7 or 8 days, he developed a knee problem. He had some muscle problems with the knees, which was giving him enormous trouble. And he had problems walking. So he shared that with me. And I was concerned for him. And frankly, I was also concerned for the Yatra. But notwithstanding this constant knee pain, he has walked these 108 days. And and the BJP wallahs spread all these things. He chalta nahi hai, gaadi mein baith jata hai. I mean, these are plain lies. The fact is that if Rahul Gandhi takes even a loo break for 5 minutes, it will be there on television. So that's one thing. So tenacity is one thing that I have seen, and I've actually, frankly, been quite impressed with it. Uh, बस करना है, एक बार बोल दिया, तपस्या है करनी है. When the yatra began, a lot of people suggested that it should be vehicles yatra, train में कर लेंगे, ऐसे कर लेंगे, and it was Rahul Gandhi who said नहीं, अगर करनी है तो पैदल करेंगे, and he stuck to that. The second thing that has struck me in the yatra is actually his temperament in dealing with people. You are not just walking; you are walking in the middle of hundreds and thousands of people who are walking with you. People are throwing yourself at you. Rahul ji, someone is trying to get a selfie. Someone is trying to get a handshake. Or sab kuch chalte hue. I haven't seen him lose his temper once. And he hasn't left his normal human quality. I mean, just 3 days ago, we were in the yatra. One of the young men tried to sneak under the police cordon, and in the process, police pushed him out, and his shoe got. He lost his shoe, and someone kicked his shoe. Now, just imagine now there are about 1,000 people around, and someone loses his shoe. Policemen are trying to kick him. Rahul was saying, "Then isko aane do." And then Rahul is actually looking for his shoe. The entire yatra stops, and Rahul is saying, "Uska juta kaha hai? Bechare ko juta to de do iska." You know, and all. I mean, these are not stage managed ambulance shows. This is actually a reality. This is actually what happens, and there's not just one. Um, uh, there was this conference of Adivasi women, and this woman who was comparing the show, as always happens in India. She was short, and the mic was about a foot higher than her. So Rahul just jumped from the seat, adjusted her mic, and got back. I mean, so this temperament in dealing with public situations, this is something I did not associate with him. I did not know much about him. And the fact that he can deal with these public situations with this kind of equanimity, that has also impressed me. Which is not to say that there's everything. I mean, if I were to honestly sum up everything, Rahul is earning what he had inherited. Uh, he had inherited Congress's leadership. Congress did not go for a talent hunt and discover that Mr. Rahul Gandhi is the most talented person available. So clearly, he had inherited it. But, and I think that sort of weighed on him, that he's inherited it, he's not earned it. And with this yatra, I can say he's earned what he inherited. And that's good news. That's good news for the country, not just for Congress. Which really matters.
If you had to though look at it, sorry, Yogendra, complete your point, then I'll move to my next question.
Good news for the country for one specific reason, that this Pappu image was Mr. Modi's ultimate weapon. This sticker called Pappu could cover so much. This sticker ensured that no one would ask Mr. Modi, what happened to those 15 lakh rupees which were meant to come to my account? What happened to 2 crore jobs? How many kilometers has China occupied? How many people really died in COVID? Pappu covered it all. The moment this Pappu sticker comes off, people begin to ask these questions. People begin to see this reality. And that is what interests me. And that's why I think the shattering of this Pappu image is good news for the country.
Let me though draw your attention to a space that you used to professionally occupy earlier, numbers. You have said quite early on in this conversation that for you personally, numbers, data, electoral consequences are not the only or not even the main barometer of how this yatra should be measured. But still, Rahul Gandhi is in politics. You are in politics. We are talking in the end about politics. I don't have numbers from this month, but I have a survey from November, early in November. And this is a C voter survey on the national sort of impact of Bharat Jodo on the perception of Rahul Gandhi. And there is no doubt, even in these numbers, that Mr. Gandhi's image used to be better before the 2019 elections, and then it nosedived. And after the yatra, it certainly recovered. It certainly repaired itself. Even in these numbers, and these numbers could be further updated. As I said, these are November numbers. I must caveat this. However, when it came to a perception of Rahul vis-a-vis the Prime Minister, because you said the Prime Minister's ultimate bumper sticker weapon was Rahul Gandhi as Pappu, you don't see, at least in this November Sea Voter Tracker, much much of a knocking to the prime minister's popularity. In fact, you see a kind of marginal increase. For Rahul Gandhi, also you see a marginal increase. So the yatra has certainly done good. I mean, to Rahul Gandhi's brand and to Rahul Gandhi's perception. Now, my question is this. I agree with what you have said that Rahul Gandhi will now be much tougher for his opponents to dismiss, to trivialize. But when it comes to elections, there have been two elections in the middle of this yatra, Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh. Gujarat was a wipeout for the Congress, Himachal Pradesh was a source of solace. When you join the dots with elections, how do you assess the impact of the yatra?
It's too early to judge the impact of the yatra on election. I do not give this yatra any credit for Congress's victory in Himachal, and I do not give this yatra any blame for Congress's defeat in Gujarat. Because frankly, places where the yatra had not reached, and the news about yatra may not have even, I mean, if you ask people in Kutch and in rural areas of Saurashtra about Bharat Jodo Yatra, I don't think they would be able to even recall the name. So to either give it positive or negative impact is of little consequence. So I think it's too early. What I learned from my psephology days, doing numbers in and out every day, was number one, uh, don't worship numbers. Look at the big trend and look at the big switch. The most important thing, Barkha, for 2024, and while I say for me, in this Yatra 2024 is not the primary concern, but as a citizen of this country, yes, I'm concerned about 2024. Yes, because 2024 could lead to a change in the constitution of this country. It could lead to formalization of so much of dismantling of this republic. So yes, as a citizen, I am concerned. But you know what I learned as a student of election is that elections are not won or lost during campaigns. Elections are won and lost usually much before the campaign begins. And that is about the overall narrative. When the Yatra began, we know the BJP had a complete stranglehold over that narrative. And I think for me, the most important thing about this Yatra would be if there is a narrative shift. I see glimpses of that. I would not claim that that has happened completely. But after a long, long time, BJP is not in control of the narrative. BJP IT cell made 5 or 6 attempts to throw mud at this yatra. It did not succeed even once. They must have been disappointed after a long, long time, because otherwise they thought with mainstream media and money, they can do anything. They can stick anything or anyone. They didn't succeed during Kisan Andolan. And this is the second time where they failed. So BJP is not fully in control of the narrative. The narrative has not yet shifted in favor against the BJP. Mr. Modi is not an unpopular prime minister even today. So yes, your numbers give the broad story. I would wait for the January numbers. Usually 2 or 3 big polls come during the month of January, around 26th of January. So I would wait to see what those numbers are. But to my mind, the most important thing is narrative shift, because unless that narrative shift takes place, no amount of organizational effort, no amount of opposition unity can defeat the BJP. The more you unite the opposition against the BJP, Mr. Modi would come out even stronger if he has that narrative control. Once that narrative shift, or at least narrative stranglehold, is loosened, then there is scope for you to actually do grassroots politics. So, just to sum it up, to my mind, this yatra may make it possible for opposition to do hard work and think of defeating the BJP. So this yatra may prepare the necessary conditions, but it certainly not anyone who imagines that a great yatra would actually make sure that opposition wins in 2024, that person is actually just being lazy, if not living in a fool's paradise.
I want to talk a little bit about ideology in politics, but first, Jairam Ramesh has accused the government of using the Intelligence Bureau to harass those who have been participating in the yatra. The BJP has reacted not with a swipe actually at the Congress, but a swipe at Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party, going on to say, oh, you mean the same intelligence bureau that had forecast a win for the Aam Aadmi Party in Gujarat. There you can see the BJP's response. What is the basis for this concern? Are you aware of it? Have you got any such sort of knocks on the door, metaphorically speaking? Do you believe this to be a credible accusation that the Congress is making today?
This information, and obviously those people don't come back to me. They would definitely go to Congress leadership than to come back to me on these issues. So it's not that I can contribute much more. All I know is that Jairam Ramesh wouldn't speak about it unless there was something very concrete, because he's not given to loose talk. And he's not given to wild allegations. So if he has said there must be credible information, all I know is that many civil society activists, civil society leaders told me आना चाहते हैं योगेन, मगर आएंगे नहीं. तुम देख रहे हो ना क्या हुआ है, FCRA में क्या हो रहा है, हमें ऐसा कॉल आया है, उसके साथ ये हुआ. They name people, they name institutions and say यार इनके साथ क्या कुछ हुआ है. So please, we are with you, but we really can't come. That everyone knows about this regime. Something is happening, but I wouldn't be able to add more to this information because I'm not privy to that.
Ideology. Does ideology matter in politics? I ask you this today because another party, in fact, a party you've been associated with in the past, the Aam Aadmi Party, some people have described the AAP to be post ideology, and they, very different from the Congress, sidestep a kind of ideological confrontation with Mr. Modi and the BJP, especially on issues of secularism and pluralism, and keep their focus on governance, delivery mechanisms. Then you have Rahul Gandhi, who talks a lot about politics of hate and a counter politics in the Yatra. You've also spoken about it. Some people think sidestepping the secularism question is smarter because the moment you have a conversation about religious politics, you're having the argument on the BJP's terms. Clearly, the AAP thinks that. The Congress thinks otherwise. But the debate around secularism, and of course, these images speak for themselves. Mr. Gandhi went and offered prayers at a temple, he went and took duas at a dargah. But the debate around secularism is far from closed in this country. The debate continues, Nehruvian versus Gandhian, hypocrisy in secularism, the Congress tie-up with the Hindutva party in the past like Shiv Sena. There are many paradoxes to Indian politics. BJP की भी अपने contradictions हैं, PDP के साथ जो tie-up हुआ कश्मीर में. My question simply to you is, does the Yatra need to ideologically resolve itself? And how do you see it in juxtaposition to the AAP that ducks several ideological questions?
Ideology matters. Ideological straitjackets of the 19th and early 20th century may not matter. Because when people say, does ideology matter? What they usually mean is, do things like communism, socialism, liberalism of the mid-20th century, do they continue to be relevant? The answer is no. In their earlier form, they are not relevant. But do ideas and taking positions and having a consistent position in public life matters? Yes, it does. And the prime example of that is BJP. I mean, after all, BJP's success is an ideological success. They are there because they have managed to shift the entire spectrum of public opinion to the right by sheer dint of ideological work. So if you want an example of does ideology matter? Yes, and there is an example. His name is Mr. Narendra Damodar Das Modi. I mean, it matters. Yes, of course. If you manage to convince people of a set, because after all, BJP's success is a success of convincing people of a different notion and idea of India than the one which prevailed earlier. So ideology matters. Ideas and communication is of prime significance. I thought you were being rather kind to Aam Aadmi Party, probably because you associate me with the party and you are trying to be kind to me. You needn't be so kind because they don't just sidestep. When you go and hold a press conference and say Lakshmi and Saraswati ka photo note pe chapna chahiye, when my old and I thought atheist friend Atishi holds a press conference and says, "हम तो आस्तिक लोग हैं, हम चाहते हैं लक्ष्मी और सरस्वती हों." That's not sidestepping, Barkha. And when there are bulldozers in Delhi, in the city they rule, and when they bring up the name of Rohingyas, it's Raghav Chadha, Atishi, and Sanjay Singh, and Manish Sisodia who accuse these victims of being Rohingyas, an accusation that even the BJP had not used by that point. That's not called sidestepping. That is actually playing the game. I mean, let's be frank. Aam Aadmi Party thinks that BJP's ideology is the ruling ideology of our times, but this ideology can have two political vendors, just as Dravidian ideology has two vendors, DMK and ADMK. Now there are 5 or 7 more as well. So Aam Aadmi Party believes that the BJP's ideology leaves a room for a second vendor and that they would be the successful second vendor of that ideology. Let's not call it sidestepping. It's not
So you think? Let me say it more plainly this time around. You think, just 1 second. You think the Aam Aadmi Party is no different in ideology from the BJP when it comes to Hindutva. You think the Aam Aadmi Party has positioned itself as a second claimant to basically the Hindutva politics of the BJP because they believe that that's what sells today.
I don't think so. They are saying it themselves. So these are not accusations. This is something which they say themselves openly, quite clearly. And that worries me enormously. I keep saying right now, given the historic crisis that this country faces, not to put too fine a point on it, our republic is being dismantled, Barkha, right now. When my republic is being dismantled, when my house is being set to fire, there are two parties. One, those who are walking with a bottle of petrol, and then there's another one who's bringing a bucket of water. यही मैं बार बार कहता हूँ, मेरे घर में आग जब लगे तो मुझे तो सिर्फ 2 पार्टी दिखाई देती हैं, जो पानी की बाल्टी ला रहा है और जो पेट्रोल का बोतल लेके चल रहा है. पानी की बाल्टी
आम आदमी पार्टी क्या क्या लेके आ रही है?
मुझे बाल्टी का रंग दिखाई नहीं देता. बाल्टी का रंग लाल हो, पीला हो, नीला हो, सब बढ़िया है. मेरे दोस्त हैं, मेरे भाई हैं, आ जाओ. लेकिन एक और होता है जो एक हाथ में बाल्टी और एक हाथ में बोतल लेके चलता है और देख रहा है कि किससे ज्यादा फायदा होगा, ये फेंक दूं या वो फेंक दूं. वो सबसे खतरनाक है. And I really fear that this is the game Aam Aadmi Party is into right now. If there's something that I feel ashamed of, it is this. As of their governance record, I mean, one can be positive. There are some positive things they have done. There are some negative things they have done. Corruption, no one has done anything in the world, in this country. Why blame Aam Aadmi Party for not doing much? That's all right. And yes, they've been harassed by the BJP and the Lieutenant Governor. I'm entirely with them. But this one aspect of Aam Aadmi Party's conduct really leaves me ashamed of myself of ever having associated with these people. But that's not the central point in today's discussion, Barkha. That's a sidey thing. On the larger ideological questions, one thing that makes me stand with this yatra is that on this issue, this yatra is unambiguous. I'm not saying every single congressman is unambiguous. I don't know. I'm not saying every single Congress worker and leader is firm on this question. I wouldn't know. But I know this yatra is absolutely unambiguous on this question. I'm so very happy that Rahul Gandhi spoke about used the Hindu-Muslim word and said, "ये BJP वाले दिन रात ये करते हैं." That's what they do.
Actually, he said it about TV channels also. He said Hindu Muslim din raat about TV channels also, not just about the BJP. कि ये जो TV channels हैं इन पे दिन रात वही चीज होती है, ये हमें इग्नोर करते हैं, चलिए ठीक है, लेकिन ये नफरत फैलाते हैं. This is what he said about television channels.
Truth of our times, Barkha. Just look at these TV channels. क्या करते हैं ये लोग? I happen to know many of the editors and I know some of the proprietors. And I almost want to go back and say to someone, तुम सुरेंद्र प्रताप सिंह के बनाए हुए लोग हो, शर्म नहीं आती तुम लोगों को ये काम करते हुए? एसपी सिंह ने तुम्हें क्या सिखाया था? I want to say to some of them, there was a time when you used to do some sensible journalism in this country. And what have you reduced your channel to? So, yes, I'm very happy that this question has been raised. This is the biggest uh, uh, factory of creating bigotry in this country. And I'm glad someone has spoken about it. So the Yatra has stood firm on this question. Now, standing firm on the question of secularism and having a careful strategy to combat BJP's communalism are two entirely different things. They stand firm on this issue. Therefore, I have no hesitation in standing with them. As a friend, I would say you should have smarter strategy. This is something I've been saying to secular friends again and again and again, that the old language of liberal constitutional secularism has very limited purchase in this country. That you must learn to speak a different language, a language that is deeply seeped in the religious traditions of this country, that draws upon Basavanna. And I'm very happy that the Yatra, took note of all these things. This is Basavanna, this is Namadev, we'll come to Nanak's land, this we've had Kabir Bhajan, Tipaniya ji was there. This is the language that works in this country, and this is the language that should work in this country. So I would like my secular friends not to be, uh, not to get trapped by the BJP. BJP every third day, does something and wants us to step into that trap. We should not do that. And we should not draw upon a language that has very little purchase in this country. We should learn to speak a different language, the language of religions, not one single religion, the language of traditions, not one single tradition, not just the great traditions, also the little traditions. That is the only language that works. So I would like my friends to learn this. But anyone who is unwavering in his support for this cause. And while we are talking of this, Barkha, I must mention this beautiful episode that the Yatra celebrated just 3 or 4 days ago. The Yatra stopped in this village called Ghaseda in Mewat. This is the village, this is Mewat area, Nuh district of Haryana. Mewat, in 1947, the Maves, who happened to be Muslim, but Muslims whose names used to be Arjun and Lakshman till about 50 years ago. Muslims who are really the example of syncretic culture in this country. They were being pushed to Pakistan. They didn't want to go to that area. They approached Mahatma Gandhi. And they said, their leader went to Gandhi and said, Gandhi ji, and sadly, many great big leaders of the country, including some big Congress leaders, were convinced that males should be told to go to Pakistan. Gandhi stood with them. And they went to Gandhi and said, Gandhi ji, हम मर जाएंगे इसमें. हम अपने देश में मर जाना चाहते हैं, हम पाकिस्तान नहीं जाएंगे. And Gandhi said, अगर ऐसा है, तो गांधी भी तुम्हारे साथ मरेगा. तुम्हें पाकिस्तान नहीं जाना. The Yatra stopped to celebrate that moment in Ghaseda village, exactly 75 years ago. Gandhiji went there, and Gandhiji went there and gave his usual 15-20 minute ka lecture, which simply said, तुम इस देश की रीढ़ की हड्डी हो, तुम्हें पाकिस्तान जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. Just this one word by Mahatma reached thousands of kilometers, and about 70,000 Meo Muslims walked back from Pakistan to Mewat because of this assurance. This is
That
the
is so
secular.
powerful. Yeah, that is, and I couldn't agree with you more that the deracinated old liberal style that is out of touch with the language that is understood by the masses of these people, of our people, that is a language I think everybody has to learn. Before I end, the last question to you, Yogendraji, what is the one maybe perception that you had about Rahul Gandhi that having walked with him you have changed your mind about? It could be that Rahul Gandhi has changed and your earlier perception was correct, or it could be that you were wrong because you didn't know him better. So I'm curious to understand that dynamic. Is there something that surprised you? Is there something you found yourself thinking, oh, maybe I had that wrong?
As I said, two things surprised me: his tenacity and his temperament. About his sincerity and seriousness, I never had any doubts. But his tenacity and temperament surprised me. And one thing that I discovered, I've sort of known him, but I've never known him quite intimately, nor do I know him intimately now. So it's a very limited kind of interaction, which is more about ideas, because he's a cerebral person, so he's into intellectual discussions and ideas and politics. I don't know him intimately, but it's only in this yatra that I've discovered what I would describe as a spiritual side to him. And I've always believed that in politics only two kinds of people survive: those who have unlimited obscene ambition, and those who have a spiritual anchorage. In this yatra, watching him over the days, evolving, connecting, relating, I saw a certain spiritual depth to him. There's spiritual anchorage. Uh, you know, uh, he's not power hungry. I almost used to think that's a fault. His not being connected, his not being. I mean, you don't have a lust for power. That's all right, but you have a duty to have a will to power. And I almost thought that he doesn't have that, and I've sort of held it against him. Uh, in this yatra, I've discovered that there's a somewhat spiritual side to him. I don't know if he calls it spiritual, probably not. But when you go beyond everyday calculations of power, gains, and losses, and look at the big picture ahead and look at the big picture within, that is what I call spiritual. I saw that in him, and surprises for this yatra for me.
Very interesting. But as you said, while the yatra technically culminates in Srinagar, that will be, in a way, its real beginning. It cannot be episodic, it cannot be event oriented. The very fact that we are today having a conversation about Rahul Gandhi and what consequences it could have marks a shift, according to me, in itself. Because I think a year ago, we wouldn't have even been willing to have this conversation. I think the sort of public space had dismissed Mr. Gandhi as a political factor. And so that in itself, I would say, is something that has happened as a result of this yatra. For the rest, the jury, as you said, is still out. Yogendra Yadav, always a pleasure. Hope you get a few days of break from the walking. And thank you so much, as ever, for talking to us. Thanks, Yogendra ji.
Thank you very much. Always such a pleasure.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Vote Her Story and support independent, robust journalism.